Number 8, Oklahoma State at number 13, TCU.
Oh, so TCU and Oklahoma State present a really good and yet underrated quarterback matchup. Spencer Sanders for Oklahoma State, Max Duggan for TCU. Both of these guys playing really well. If you actually look at the Big 12 passing statistics, you'll see that they're really the top 2 quarterbacks in the conference. Now, I say that doesn't include Quinn Ewers yet because he hasn't thrown enough or played enough to be included in those stats. So outside of Quinn Ewers, these 2 quarterbacks are the best 2 quarterbacks in the Big 12, in particular this year. Both have a lot of experience, and both are really vital to their team's success. And you can be saying like, well, of course they are, Joel. It's their quarterback. Yeah, but these are offensive-oriented teams. Both of these defenses are not that great. In fact, when you look and you kind of dig through some of the numbers, they're actually eerily similar in terms of their struggles on defense. So it's going to come down to the quarterback play. Both of these guys playing at a high level. Now, last year, Spencer Sanders at times struggled to turn the ball over. If that happens, then it's a lock. Then TCU is going to win this one. By the way, they're favored by 4.5. If he doesn't, then it could be a struggle. And then it's going to go back to, like, well, who can stay balanced, who can run the ball a little bit, and then which quarterback is going to make more plays. Well, listen, TCU's offense right now is just a little bit ahead of Oklahoma State. TCU is in the top 3 in scoring offense and total offense in the country. All right up there with Tennessee and Ohio State. These are kind of the best offenses in the country, and Duggan has played really well, in particular at home. When I look at this matchup for them at home, TCU is averaging 57 points per game at home. Max Duggan, 14 touchdowns, only 1 interception. And even though Spencer Sanders is experienced, that defense for Oklahoma State makes me nervous. We saw what happened to Oklahoma when they rolled into Fort Worth. They weren't having it. By the way, that's a pretty good environment in and of itself. Those Frog fans are ready to go. And here's another shout out because I have one of my favorite people on the planet who is at TCU and will be at the game, and that is my nephew, Ben. He's a freshman at TCU, and he just constantly, like, he's texting me all the time. Hey, the Frogs, look at the Frogs, look at the Frogs. They were in a big game last week on the road. They come back home. That place is going to be electric, and I think that their offense is going to be too much for a struggling defense of Oklahoma State. If you're asking me what I like in this game, it's TCU. Even though they're favored by 4.5, I would take TCU in this one because they're at home and because their quarterback is so comfortable at home. Again, 57 points per game at home this year for the Frogs offense. I think the Frogs stay undefeated and really grasp the lead in that Big 12. If they win this game, I really think that they're going to wind up in the Big 12 championship game, and that might be right where they're headed in Sonny Dykes' first year as head coach of the TCU Horned Frogs. That one's going to be a very good game and an underrated game because the other 3 that I'm talking about are going to get much more of the attention, but that one's going to be very good, in particular when you look at the race for that Big 12 championship and who's actually going to be playing there in Jerry's World.
Number 7, USC at number 20, Utah.
So we've been looking at this really ever since the offseason. This USC team, it was like, well, where are the games that they could struggle? And everyone's like, well, Utah, maybe UCLA, maybe Notre Dame. But hey, Lincoln Riley, this offense. So Utah being at home, they've got 2 losses. It's the best 2-loss team in the country. I think you would agree with me on that. Utah is favored by 3.5 in this game. Would it offend you, Trojan fans, if I told you that right now, USC is a bit of an illusion? Doesn't mean that they're bad. I just think they're a bit of an illusion. And the reason is they have to play a very specific style in order to win. If you look at the stats and you look through the numbers, you would be like, oh, man, their defense is way improved. Their defense is really good. You might even say really good. They're the number 1 scoring defense in the Pac-12, Joel. They're number 1 in the country in interceptions and sacks. Man, they're monsters on that side of the ball, but that doesn't tell the whole story. See, the fact of the matter is that if their offense, which is tremendous, one of the best offenses in the country, but if their offense does not put their defense in position to succeed with the lead, opposing an opposing offense that has to be one-dimensional, then they're not anywhere near those numbers. They're 105th right now in the country in terms of yards per rush defense. They have to play with the lead. If they don't play with the lead, that run defense will be exposed. This matchup in particular is a horrendous matchup for USC. Horrendous. Why? Nobody is more committed to running the football in the Pac-12 than Utah. Nobody. They average more carries per game than everybody in the conference. Almost 40 carries per game. Nobody in the Pac-12 does a better job of keeping the opposing offense on the sideline than Utah. They lead the conference in time of possession at 33 minutes. Terrible matchup. Utah has been the best home team in the Pac-12. If you go all the way back to 2017, Kyle Whittingham's Utes are 23-2 in Salt Lake at home. So here you have a team that is great at home, committed to running the ball, physical at the line of scrimmage, and does a great job of keeping the opposing offense on the sideline. If you're building a team to face this USC team, that's exactly what you would build. This is not a good matchup for USC. I told you that it's not a good matchup for Alabama, and this is also not a good matchup for USC. USC is 16 points offensively, scoring offense, worse on the road. Let's just put it this way. Caleb Williams is going to have to play his best game of his career if USC is going to go in there and actually beat Utah. You know, UCLA was able to beat up on Utah last week. Why? Because UCLA could get physical. They can run the ball. They can stay balanced on offense. They've got a defense that right now leads the Pac-12 in yards per rush given up. And that was a bad matchup for Utah. And Utah turned the ball over a couple of times. UCLA was opportunistic at times, and then boom, there you go, and it's a Bruins win. And by the way, that Bruins team, that's also a bad matchup for USC. USC wants to be in a track meet. They want to be in a game in which they can get a touchdown, 2 touchdowns, maybe even a 3-score lead. In that game, you get up there to that 12-point margin, 14-point margin, 17-point margin, and now what shows up? Well, the ability to disrupt on the defense. So sacks and interceptions, that disruption leads to poor timing, and then here you go, you're going to get those interceptions. And then that leads to a good scoring defense. But outside of that, their total defense is not great, and their run defense is not great. This Utah team, I think, beats USC, and I think they cover that 3.5.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here, College Football on Fox.